YouTube, welcome back. I hope you are having a wonderful day. And in today's video, it's just going to be kind of like me raw dogging and just telling you everything that I would consider when creating a meal plan for yourself. Now, first thing, everyone, they hear meal plan and they're like, you have to eat the same thing every day. I can't really do that. In reality, a meal plan does not mean eating the exact same foods every day. It just gives you structure. It's just going to help with your daily routine. But in reality, you probably are kind of already eating the same things every day. You probably grab the same snacks after school every day. You probably have the same breakfast. Maybe you have 2 or 3 options for breakfast, but you're repeating those throughout the week. So in reality, you probably do pretty much eat the same thing every day. We're creatures of habits, right? We're human. We want repetition. We want a routine, right? We have routines for ourselves. Everyone's different. So meal plans are not scary. They're the best way to go in my opinion, man. They give you the most structure, and it's just going to help your overall process, day-to-day life productivity, and as well as that, your physique goals. So first off, when we're speaking on meal plans, enjoyment, right? We want to enjoy our meal plan. Now, so that means finding food sources you like, crafting meals together, putting a little bit of time and effort into your meals. It can go a long way. I'm telling you, eating healthy does not have to be hard. Now, with the enjoyment factor, you do have to take into consideration, not to be using these TikTok, Instagram reel meals, right, with 50 different ingredients, because that's just going to set you up for failure. You can't spend hours upon hours in the kitchen for every meal, right? Meal prepping meals needs to be efficient, right? So find meals that you enjoy, but don't make them too overcomplicated to the point where it's just going to set you up for failure. Now, when speaking on the meal plan, the most important thing is how many calories to eat. That's where you find your maintenance calories. Now, the quickest, obviously so many variables depend on this, your activity levels, all that, but the quickest, easiest way is look up TDEE calculator online, on Google, type in your information. It's going to spit you out a number, right? Eat that number for a week and track your body weight every day. See what your body weight does. Does your body weight hold and that actually is your maintenance? Does your body weight kind of go down a little bit so you're actually in a deficit? Does it rise a little bit so you're actually in a surplus? Take 1 to 2 weeks, experiment with that number that calculator gives you, and actually find your true maintenance, because probably more likely than not, that number that it spits out is not going to be your real maintenance calories. So do that. And another important thing, weigh yourself every morning, right? You have to do that. That's the only way you're going to be able to know whether you're in a surplus, whether you're in a deficit, whether you're at maintenance. So with the meal plan, obviously, depending on your goals, if you want to gain some size and you want to go in a surplus, go in a 100 to 300 calorie surplus from your maintenance, and a deficit the other way. Or if you're going to go on more of a short, aggressive mini cut, then I would go anywhere from 800 to 1,000 calories below your maintenance. Don't really recommend that for beginners, especially aggressive mini cuts. That needs to be a thought out plan, right? So yeah, that's how you find your maintenance calories. Now, let's talk about how to split up your macronutrients, being your protein, carbs, and fats. So, protein, anywhere from 0.8 to 1.5 grams. Now, the reason that's such a wide gap is because depending on what phase you're in, right? Think about it. If you're at the beginning of a gaining phase, you would want protein to be on that lower end, to that 1 gram per pound of body weight. Reason being, as you add food, carbs are protein sparing. As you add carbs throughout your gaining phase, when your weight stalls week to week, and you have to add in more food to start gaining weight, your trace protein is going to go up. So your protein number is going to go up as you're increasing foods in your gaining phase. So if you're at the beginning of a gaining phase, start at that lower end of that number. I would say 1 gram per pound of body weight. Now, if you're in a diet, it's the complete opposite, right? I would go higher. I would go 1.2 to 1.5 grams per pound of body weight. Reason being there, as you take away carbs, right, your protein number is going to go down. And protein is the most satiating macro. So in a gaining phase, you'd want that to be lower because you want appetite to be firing at all times. And in a diet, you want that protein to be super high because you want to feel fuller longer, right? So that's protein. Fats. So set your protein, set your fats. 0.3 to 0.5 grams of fats per pound of body weight. this is person dependent. I'm always going to side on lower fats just because, like for me, my sole purpose is to fuel my training performance, right? I want the best out of my physique, so I want my training to be on point, which is fueled by loads of carbohydrates. Now, fats, like I said, 0.3 to 0.5, it's a personal preference. Let's say you like a higher fat diet. You like having more oils, butters, peanut butter, dark chocolate, cheeses, avocado. Like you just enjoy those food sources. Then run it up to 0.5 grams per pound of body weight. It's not going to make a huge difference. Obviously, I would like to have higher carbs just because carbs do fuel workouts, right? And if you're in a gaining phase, right? If you're in a gaining phase and you want to run a higher fat diet, okay, because your carbs are probably still going to be fairly high. Now, if you're in a diet, 0.3 grams of fat, right? Just because when you're in a diet, you're going to be limited on carbs due to your calorie intake. And we want carbs to have, we want as many carbs as possible in a diet phase to fuel performance and maintain performance in the gym. Sorry, I'm stuttering. I'm raw dogging this. I'm not going to cut it out or edit it. What was I saying? So we want carbs to be high in a diet, as high as they can be in a diet, just because the sole purpose of a diet is to hold on to the muscle that you built in that gaining phase. So fats can vary 0.3 to 0.5. Just have them somewhere in that range for the healthy hormones. And if you're dieting, I would definitely recommend being on the lower end. Obviously, if you're assisted, which I'm sure no one watching this is on steroids, but you can obviously play around with lower numbers. You definitely would be on lower numbers. You would not even be close to 0.5. But that's fat intake there. And then the rest, so you have your fats, you have your carbs, or you have your protein. You just backfill the rest with carbohydrates. Obviously, the way that you place your carbs is going to matter, especially in a diet. I'm telling you, if you're in a diet, you want a majority of your carbs around the workout window. And if you have trouble with cravings, I recommend having a big chunk of carbs post-bed, and that's also going to help your sleep in a diet. But we can go over that in a different video, pre-workout, nutrition, all that good stuff. So yeah, that is the macro split. So now obviously with those, so you have all your protein, carbs, and fats. I would recommend having 3 to 5 sources of each just to get that variety, right? So let's say you want rice, oatmeal, sourdough bread, right? Something like that. Like just have variety, chicken breast, ground beef, Greek yogurt, whey protein. You know what I mean? Have variety in your food sources. So don't just be don't eat 5 meals of chicken breast every day, right? You're just not going to be getting a lot of food variety and different, you know what I mean? You want variety. I mean, it just would get boring to eat chicken and rice 5 times a day, right? Throw in a whey meal, throw in a Greek yogurt bowl, throw in some ground beef. So that's all the macros done, right? So with that, fruit and veg, this is something that is so overlooked, right? I would aim for 300 to 500 grams of fruit and veg throughout the day, every day, right? And have a serving of one or the other in every single meal. Obviously, I would standardize your veg amount, right? Like for me personally, like I have 300 grams of veggies a day, right? I have a meal where I have 150 grams. I have a meal where I have 100 grams. And I have a meal where I have 50 grams. Just a mix of vegetables. Have variety in the vegetables. Just buy like big frozen packs of medley mixed vegetables and just have standardized amounts, whether that's 100 grams per meat and rice meal, or more or less, depending on what phase you're in and your goals, right? Well, not really your goals, but like what phase you're in. Like if you're in a gaining phase, you might want to side on having less. If you're in a diet phase, you might want to side on having more, just for that more food volume. But yeah, and fruits, obviously, fruits have a high amount of calories. Some of them, like bananas, apples, grapes, like these are higher calorie fruits that are coming from carbohydrates. But to make sure that all micronutrients, and also it's going to help with fiber intake, right, which is vital for digestion. Like you have to be prioritizing your fiber. I recommend 30 to 40 grams for most people, maybe more depending on your size and how many calories you're eating. But with the fruits, yeah, so those are going to be carbohydrates, obviously. Like if you have a banana, that's like 25, 30 carbs right there. So you need to track, like you actually need to put those into your meal plan and track those as your calories for the day. Don't just have like 100 grams of fruit in a meal, because if you have 100 grams of banana versus 100 grams of strawberries, that can be quite a large calorie difference, right? So make sure you're actually weighing out your fruit. Like, I would not just do one banana, right? I would have 100 grams of banana on your plan just to be more accurate, because some bananas could be 120 grams and some bananas could be 70 grams, and the calorie difference there could vary quite a bit. So that's fruit and veg. Food swaps. So this is what I want to talk about. Like, everyone's like, well, I don't like eating the same thing every day. Have like for like food swaps, guys. I'm going to give you 2 examples of this. I'm going to give you an example of a food swap in meals and a meal alternative. So let's say the meal alternative first. Let's say for breakfast, your breakfast is, I don't know, sourdough bread, eggs, and an egg white scramble with some vegetables. Like an egg scramble with some sourdough bread, right? Okay, let's say that meal is 500 I'm just making this up. 500 calories, 30 grams of protein, 50 grams of carbs, 10 grams of fat, right? So you have that meal. But let's say some days, like, you don't want that. Like, during the week, like, you don't want to have to make these eggs in the morning before work or school. Okay, have a meal alternative that is like oatmeal, whey protein, berries, and a nut butter and dark chocolate. And have that meal macro match the other meal of 500 calories. So have the oats be 500 calories. What did I say? 30 grams of protein, 50 carbs, 10 fat. I think you know what I mean, right? So you just have to spend a little time on your calorie tracking app, MyFitnessPal, and figuring out that macro match. So that way you can have 2 options for breakfast. So you can have some variety. You can have a sweet oatmeal bowl, or you can have a savory egg scramble. You know what I mean? That's what I mean by, like, being smart with your meal alternatives. Like, see, that's still a whole food meal. What I don't mean by doing that is having your eggs meal and then for this meal just have like 3 donuts and a protein shake just to get the protein number. Like, don't do that. Whole foods, man. I'm telling you, whole foods are king. I don't care what anyone says. If you eat 2,000 calories and 100 grams of protein worth of junk food and just fill the rest with protein shakes, the protein number, versus having whole food diet, your gym performance is going to be better. Your gym performance is going to be better, is going to lead to better muscle gain, better hypertrophy, etc. So not all food is created equal. Obviously, if your sole main purpose is to lose weight, yes, you just need to be in a deficit, but eat whole foods, guys. Eat mostly whole foods. 90 to 95% of your diet should be whole foods. All right, I'm going on a rant. I'm going to stop. Okay. So that's the meal alternative. Now, like food swaps. So let's say your lunch option, you have on your meal plan, white rice, chicken breast, olive oil, vegetables, right? Veggies, and a low-calorie sauce. That's like an example meal that I would make for a client. So with that meal, obviously, though, like for all my clients, like next to that rice, I have like spaced out, I have a star and bold, and it's like so many grams worth of sweet potato can be swapped for this rice, or pasta can be swapped for this rice. You know what I mean? So let's say you have 70 grams of white rice, but maybe you want pasta. Have 70 grams of pasta. I know that 70 grams of white rice and 70 grams of pasta are pretty much the same calories, same carbs. That's why I made that. But like if you have 70 grams of white rice and you want sweet potato instead, you just have to do that math on the, you don't have to do any math. You just have to plug that in on MyFitnessPal and figure out how many sweet potatoes matches that 70 grams of white rice. Same with the chicken breast. You have chicken breast, but you want to sub it out for another lean protein source. Okay, turkey breast, white fish, shrimp, egg whites. Those are just examples of lean protein sources. Olive oil, you don't want that as your fat source. Okay, do shredded cheese, do avocado. So you can make that rice, chicken, and olive oil meal into like a pasta, dish, right? With pasta, chicken, and cheese, right? Like you get what I mean, right? Or to be honest with you, not really advanced, but like if you get more in depth about it, so you have your carb source, a lean protein, and a fat source, right? So you could take that olive oil and chicken breast, and you could substitute that for a fatty or ground beef, right? Sorry, I'm keep stuttering. I'm doing this all in one go with like no notes, so it's kind of hard just to come up with everything. But you would substitute that chicken breast and olive oil for a fattier ground beef, because you know that you have a lean protein source and a fat source here, and a fattier protein source. You can macro match that. That might not make sense to you, but as you do get better with tracking your food and using things like MyFitnessPal, it will make sense to you. So you could turn that quote-unquote bland white rice, chicken breast, olive oil meal with vegetables into a sweet potato burger bowl with sweet potatoes as your carbs, of fattier ground beef and veggies, and make it like a burger bowl. But I'm just ranting at that point, right? Okay, next thing is rest day versus training day nutrition. Now, this is person dependent, right? There's no right or wrong way to go about it. Obviously, I'm going to side on the side that yes, you should have lower calorie intake on your rest days, coming from carbohydrates. Reason being, your need for carbs on rest days are probably much lower. Now, this could be as simple as having all the same meals, right? You have all the same meals, but on your training day, during your workout, you drink a sports drink. You drink an 150 calorie sports drinks of carbohydrates. And on rest days, you just don't have that. You know what I mean? So, like, it shouldn't be like a massive calorie difference, but I do recommend having a little bit of lower calories on rest days and make that calorie drop off come from carbs. So just a little bit of lower carbs on rest days. I would recommend, like I said, it's personal preference. If you don't want to do that and you just want to eat the same foods every day, then just make sure that your weekly surplus or deficit is accounted for when doing that. The last thing I'm going to leave you with is meal timings. So whether you're in a gaining phase or dieting phase, this is only going to help you, right? Space out your meals every 2 to 4 hours and have 4 to 6 meals a day. What this is going to do, whether you're in a gaining phase and you don't feel like eating, right, but you have these set meal times, and these don't have to be right on the minute, right on the button, right? Make them within 30 minutes to an hour every day, try. But eat every 2 to 4 hours, and what this is going to do, it's going to get your body in a routine, whether you're in a gaining phase or diet phase. So if you're in a gaining phase and your appetite's low, you don't feel like eating, but you keep pushing these meal times and you keep eating at the same time every day, your body is going to get used to that, and it's actually going to start to get hungrier come these meal times. Same thing with in a dieting phase. If you're starving you're starving, right? But you start eating at the same time every day, spacing out your meals at the same time every day, your body's going to get used to that, guys. Like, if you're in a dieting phase, do not do this. Do not front load a ton of calories and leave you nothing at night, right? Nothing before bed, because what that's going to lead to is you going off plan and binge eating 2,000 calories, right? So don't set yourself up for failure. Have set meal times and space out your meals properly throughout the day. Guys, I think I covered everything I wanted to in this kind of meal plan segment. This was just kind of like an overall brief. Like, I didn't go too much into detail. I know I went on a couple yaps, but not too much into detail over everything. I hope this helped you out. If it did, man, or if you need help making a meal plan, shoot me a message on Instagram, man. FipsFit. Shoot me a message. Just say what you're confused on, what you need help with, right? I offer $25 meal plans. $25 for a meal plan. It's pretty cheap. Or if it's 10 or 15, if that's what you can afford, I don't care. Or, if you just have some questions and just want some guidance, just shoot me a message. I'll help you out for free, man. That's no problem. Like, I just want to help you out. But I know that meal plans can be confusing for some people because a lot of people just don't have a good grasp on basic nutrition, right? And I think I can help people out because I do have a pretty good grasp on all things nutrition. So I'm going on another ramble. That's when I know I need to end the video. But that is pretty much everything with meal plans. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you got anything out of it, man, like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun YouTube stuff. And I will see you guys at the next video. Peace out.